Part 1, The Galactic Confederation's Dilemma. The Galactic Confederation prided itself on being the pinnacle of interstellar civilization. With over 300 sentient species under its banner, it was a sprawling empire of order, rules, and, most importantly, uniforms. Every species had its place, its function, and its proper identification protocols. The Creel, with their color-coded exoskeletons, led the elite shock troops. The Yuyan, gelatinous beings resembling sentient lava lamps, excelled in intelligence gathering. The Voltri, methane-breathing octopus-like creatures in business suits, controlled the galactic economy. And then there were the humans. Humans had joined the Confederation a mere 87 years ago, a blink of an eye in galactic terms. To the other species, humans were like toddlers playing with antimatter scissors, amusing but slightly concerning. The problem, as High Commander Stan of the Creel often chittered, was that humans didn't know how to properly advertise their capabilities. While other species flaunted their military prowess with elaborate uniforms, ceremonial weapons, and parade formations, humans seemed almost pathologically opposed to drawing attention to their martial abilities. Their official military representatives wore plain clothing, indistinguishable from their civilian counterparts. No bioluminescent rank indicators, no ritual scarification, not even proper threat displays before diplomatic meetings. This lack of visible structure became a pressing concern following the events at Outpost Kappa 9. Positioned on the fringe of disputed space near Harvester territory, the outpost was a routine monitoring station. The Harvesters, a species resembling 2-meter-tall praying mantises with advanced technology and no concept of personal boundaries, had been the Confederation's most persistent adversary for millennia. When 3 Harvester warships dropped out of hyperspace near Kappa 9, the outpost followed standard protocol: report the incursion, activate defense systems, and await reinforcements. Except the reinforcements arrived 16 hours later to find the situation resolved in a manner that violated several laws of physics. The holographic display showed 3 Harvester warships, each capable of reducing a small moon to cosmic dust, floating dead in space. Not destroyed, not damaged, just inoperative, as though someone had flipped an off switch. The preliminary investigation suggested a boarding action, but Kappa 9's security complement consisted of 12 Creel guards and an automated defense system, hardly a strike force. The surveillance footage revealed 4 unidentified bipeds entering through the maintenance airlock 30 minutes after the Harvester ships arrived. They wore nondescript dark clothing, carried primitive projectile weapons, and moved with practiced efficiency. Within 40 minutes, all Harvester forces aboard the ships had been neutralized, and the vessels disabled. The individuals then departed in a modified civilian transport vessel. The Galactic Security Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from the 17 senior member species gathered in the Grand Chamber on Confederation Central, a room so accommodating of biological diversity that it resembled a combination zoo, aquarium, and terrarium. The human representative, a forgettable individual in plain gray clothing with only a small pin to indicate official status, seemed unnervingly calm throughout the proceedings. Would the human delegation care to explain the identity of these operatives? Asked Premier Ziz of the Voltri hegemony, his voice bubbling through his methane translator. The human representative blinked slowly before responding. I'm afraid we have no information about any special operations at Outpost Kappa 9. Preposterous, chittered High Commander Stan. Those were clearly your elite warriors. Without proper uniforms, the human asked, raising an eyebrow. Without insignia or identification? Without following proper military protocols? That doesn't sound very elite to me. And thus began the Confederation's obsessive quest to understand the mystery of human special forces, a quest that would prove as enlightening as it was disturbing. Part 3, The Philosophy of Invisibility. The revelation that human special forces didn't just pretend to be civilians, they became them, sent shockwaves through the Galactic Confederation. The concept was so alien, so counterintuitive, that it took months for the implications to fully sink in. The galaxy's military establishments, so deeply rooted in tradition and hierarchy, struggled to comprehend a force that operated without uniforms, insignia, or even a visible command structure. The first to truly grasp the depth of the human approach were the intelligence analysts. After months of poring over surveillance footage, cross-referencing data, and interviewing captured harvesters, they began to piece together the philosophy behind human special forces. It wasn't just about blending in, it was about belonging. "They don't infiltrate," explained analyst first-year Bloopity Bleep during a briefing to the Galactic Security Council. "They integrate. They don't just learn the basics of a role, they master it. They don't just wear a disguise, they live it." The council members, representing species from across the galaxy, exchanged uneasy glances. The idea that a single individual could maintain multiple genuine identities, each with its own set of skills, accomplishments, and even relationships, was almost incomprehensible. "Are you suggesting," asked Premier Ziz of the Voltri hegemony, his methane bubbles trembling with disbelief, "that these humans are not only capable of becoming experts in multiple fields but also of maintaining those identities indefinitely?" "Yes," replied Bloopity Bleep, their gelatinous form rippling with emphasis. "And not just maintaining them, excelling in them. They don't just pose as chefs, they win culinary awards. They don't just pretend to be engineers, they file patents. They don't just act like teachers, they inspire students." The council chamber fell silent as the weight of this realization settled over them. The humans had turned professional development into the ultimate stealth technology. The case of the unassuming teacher. One of the most striking examples of this philosophy came from a small human colony on the edge of Confederation space. The colony, known as New Eden, was a quiet, unremarkable settlement primarily focused on agriculture and light manufacturing. It was the kind of place that most galactic citizens would struggle to locate on a star map. When a harvester raiding party targeted New Eden, the colony's defenses were minimal. The local militia, composed of farmers and factory workers armed with outdated weapons, stood little chance against the technologically advanced harvesters. Yet, within hours of the attack, the raiding party was neutralized, their ships disabled, and their forces captured. The surveillance footage revealed a single individual leading the defense, a middle-aged human woman named Dr. Eliza Carter. Dr. Carter was the colony's schoolteacher, known for her dedication to her students and her passion for history. She had no military training, no visible weapons, and no connection to any known special forces unit. Yet, as the harvesters advanced, Dr. Carter had calmly organized the militia, directed the evacuation of civilians, and devised a strategy that exploited the harvesters' weaknesses. Using nothing more than improvised explosives and a deep understanding of the colony's terrain, she had turned the tide of the battle. When questioned by Confederation investigators, Dr. Carter shrugged off their praise. "I just did what needed to be done," she said. "I've lived here for 20 years. I know every inch of this colony. And I'll be damned if I let some overgrown bugs take it from us." The investigators were baffled. How could a schoolteacher possess such tactical acumen? The answer, as they soon discovered, lay in Dr. Carter's past. Before becoming a teacher, she had served in the human military as a logistics officer. She had retired to New Eden to start a new life, but her skills and instincts had never left her. She wasn't pretending to be a teacher, one analyst noted. She was a teacher. But she was also a soldier. And when the time came, she became a leader. The galactic reaction. The revelation of Dr. Carter's dual identity sent ripples through the Galactic Confederation. If a schoolteacher could single-handedly repel a harvester raid, what else were humans capable of? The Council's paranoia reached new heights as they realized that every human they encountered could potentially be a Special Forces operative. Job applications across the galaxy now included the awkward question, "Are you genuinely qualified for this position, or are you genuinely qualified for this position?" The emphasis made no grammatical sense, but everyone understood the implication. Military fashion designers fell into an existential crisis. How do you design uniforms for a force that treats everything as a uniform? One particularly frustrated designer created a line of clothing called Maybe Special Forces, which was just normal clothing with slightly better tactical functionality. It became a bestseller among civilians, leading to the absurd situation where people trying to spot human special forces started ignoring anyone wearing tactical clothing as too obvious. The human response. The humans, meanwhile, seemed almost amused by the galaxy's reaction to their methods. When one operative was finally questioned about their approach to special forces work, they submitted their response in the form of a perfectly researched academic paper. The paper, titled The Invisible Hand, A Sociological Analysis of Human Special Forces, was published in a prestigious journal and won several awards. Why spend time creating a fake identity, the paper concluded, when you could spend the same time creating a real one? Besides, having multiple careers is just good financial planning in this economy. This last comment sparked another 6 months of intelligence analysis as various species tried to determine whether humans had somehow weaponized economic responsibility. The results were inconclusive, but several analysts developed a newfound interest in diversifying their investment portfolios. The final irony. The final irony came when several alien military organizations realized that their own special forces had been extensively infiltrated, not by human operators pretending to be military trainers, but by actual qualified military trainers who happened to be human special forces. They had literally been teaching their methods to their competitors while genuinely improving alien special forces training. A classified memo circulated among alien military commands summarized the situation perfectly: the humans have achieved the ultimate invisibility by being completely visible. They hide their special forces in plain sight by making them legitimately qualified for whatever role they need to play. They haven't mastered deception, they've made it obsolete. Training facilities across the galaxy now include a mandatory course titled, Why That Outstanding Employee Might Be Human Special Forces, or maybe they're just outstanding, and why this uncertainty is the whole point. The course has a high dropout rate, primarily due to students developing paranoid tendencies about their own career choices. As for the humans, they continue their operations, hidden behind genuine credentials, actual expertise, and real accomplishments. Their special forces operators might be your award-winning chef, your highly qualified accountant, or that incredibly dedicated teacher who somehow always gets through to problem students. The only certainty is uncertainty, and that's exactly how they like it. After all, as one human operator noted in their best-selling cookbook, which was both a legitimate culinary masterpiece and probably contained coded intelligence protocols, the best way to hide is to be exactly who you appear to be. Also, always cream your butter and sugar properly. Lumpy cookies are a dead giveaway. Part 4: The Psychological Warfare. The Galactic Confederation's obsession with human special forces had reached a fever pitch. What began as a simple investigation into the Kappa 9 incident had spiraled into a galaxy-wide crisis of identity and trust. The humans' ability to blend seamlessly into any role, to become anyone and everyone, had shattered the Confederation's understanding of warfare, espionage, and even society itself. The psychological impact was profound. Alien species, so accustomed to rigid hierarchies and visible distinctions, found themselves questioning every interaction. Was the friendly shopkeeper actually a spy? Was the brilliant scientist secretly a soldier? The uncertainty gnawed at the fabric of galactic society, creating a pervasive sense of paranoia that no amount of bureaucratic oversight could alleviate. The case of the unlikely hero. One of the most striking examples of this psychological warfare occurred on the bustling trade world of Zephyria Prime. Known for its sprawling markets and diverse population, Zephyria Prime was a hub of commerce and culture. It was also a prime target for harvester raids, thanks to its strategic location and abundant resources. When a harvester fleet appeared in Zephiria's orbit, panic swept through the planet. The local defense forces, though well-equipped, were no match for the Harvesters' advanced technology. As the alien warships descended, a single human stepped forward to lead the resistance. His name was Marcus Hale, a middle-aged human who ran a small repair shop in the heart of Zephiria's largest market. To his neighbors, Marcus was a quiet, unassuming man who could fix anything from a broken hyperdrive to a malfunctioning replicator. He was known for his patience, his skill, and his willingness to help anyone in need. But when the Harvesters attacked, Marcus transformed. With calm precision, he organized the market's vendors into a makeshift militia, using their knowledge of the terrain to set up ambushes and traps. He repurposed his repair tools into weapons, jury-rigging plasma cutters into makeshift blasters and turning maintenance drones into explosive devices. Within hours, the Harvesters were in retreat, their ships crippled by Marcus's improvised defenses. When the Confederation investigators arrived, they found Marcus back in his shop, calmly repairing a damaged hovercart as if nothing had happened. "How did you do it?" one investigator asked, his voice tinged with awe. Marcus shrugged. "I've been fixing things my whole life. This was just another problem to solve." The investigators were stunned. Marcus had no military training, no special forces background, at least, none that they could find. Yet his actions had saved countless lives and repelled a Harvester invasion. He wasn't pretending to be a repairman, one analyst later noted. He was a repairman. But he was also a leader, a strategist, and a hero. The humans don't just adapt to their environment, they become it. The ripple effect. The story of Marcus Hale spread quickly, further fueling the galaxy's paranoia. If a humble repairman could single-handedly defeat a Harvester raid, what else were humans capable of? The Confederation's military leaders found themselves second-guessing every decision, every strategy, every ally. How do we fight an enemy that doesn't look like an enemy? Admiral Kroc of the Soran Defense Fleet demanded during a heated council meeting. How do we defend against an attack that could come from anywhere, at any time, from anyone? The answer, as it turned out, was that they couldn't. The humans had turned the very concept of warfare on its head. Their special forces didn't just infiltrate enemy lines, they became part of the fabric of society itself. They didn't just gather intelligence, they lived it. This realization had a profound impact on galactic culture. Job applications now included invasive background checks and psychological evaluations. Trust, once a cornerstone of Confederation society, became a rare and precious commodity. Even the Harvesters, the Confederation's most persistent adversaries, were affected. After several failed raids on human colonies, they began to avoid human-settled systems altogether. "The humans are unpredictable," one Harvester commander chittered during an intercepted transmission. "They do not follow the rules of war. They do not even follow the rules of reality." The human advantage. The humans, for their part, seemed almost amused by the chaos they had caused. When questioned about their methods, they offered cryptic responses that only deepened the mystery. "Why wear a uniform when you can wear anything?" one human operative quipped during a rare interview. "Why pretend to be something when you can just be it?" This philosophy extended beyond the battlefield. Human diplomats, scientists, and even artists were now viewed with suspicion. Was the brilliant physicist actually a spy? Was the celebrated painter secretly a soldier? The uncertainty created a psychological advantage that no amount of firepower could match. "The humans have turned ambiguity into a weapon," one psychological warfare expert noted. "They don't just hide in plain sight, they make plain sight itself a form of hiding." The final irony. The final irony came when the Confederation's own special forces began to adopt human tactics, with mixed results. The Xenian elite forces spent 5 years training as circus performers, only to realize that none of their operations required juggling or acrobatics. The Orosai Stealth Division tried to replicate the human approach by requiring their operatives to become real chefs, only to have most of them quit military service to open restaurants. "We thought we could copy the humans," one Xenian commander admitted. "But we didn't realize that their strength lies in their ability to be what they appear to be. It's not just a tactic, it's a way of life." The humans, meanwhile, continued to operate with the same maddening efficiency. Their special forces might be your neighbor, your coworker, or even your friend. The only certainty was uncertainty, and that, as the humans well knew, was the most powerful weapon of all. Part 2: The Hunt for Human Special Forces. The Galactic Security Council's investigation into the Kappa 9 incident quickly spiraled into a galaxy-wide game of "Where's Waldo?" Except in this version, Waldo was potentially armed with primitive but distressingly effective weaponry, and no one knew what he was supposed to be wearing. The Council's initial theories ranged from the absurd to the downright paranoid. "Perhaps the humans have evolved beyond the need for visual identification," suggested diplomat 3rd grade Furan B of the Aquatic Collective, his gill flaps undulating thoughtfully. "Maybe they recognize each other through pheromones or subtle behavioral cues." The council members considered this possibility with the sort of expressions one might wear when discovering something unpleasant stuck to the bottom of one's appendage. "Ridiculous," snorted Admiral Croc of the Sorin Defense Fleet, his scales flushing a contemptuous purple. "Every civilized species displays rank and specialization. It's the foundation of ordered society." A human liaison officer assigned to the investigation, a specimen so unremarkable in appearance that 3 different security officers had attempted to eject them from the chamber, assuming they were a civilian who had wandered in by mistake, offered no comment beyond a polite smile. This infuriated the council to no end. The investigation expanded. Surveillance systems throughout Confederation space were adjusted to identify and track humans who exhibited behavioral patterns similar to the Kappa 9 operatives. Military intelligence officers were dispatched to human worlds under diplomatic cover to observe their armed forces. What they discovered only deepened the mystery. First, human military organizations did have uniforms, mundane, practical garments with consistent design elements across various service branches. These were catalogued, classified, and assigned threat assessments based on the observed capabilities of personnel wearing them. Second, the individuals most frequently observed wearing these uniforms rarely, if ever, participated in actual combat operations. "It doesn't make any sense," moaned General VX during the 47th emergency session convened to address what was now being called the human paradox. His skin had cycled through so many confused color patterns that younger Fanon had begun using recordings of his briefings as recreational hallucinogens. "Their official military hierarchy appears to be a bureaucratic shell," explained analyst First-Tier Bloopity Bleep. "The personnel who demonstrate the greatest combat effectiveness are often those with minimal or no official identification as warriors." The Council's confusion reached new heights when, 6 months after the Kappa 9 incident, another harvester incursion was repelled by what appeared to be 4 humans wearing tourist apparel and casual hiking attire. The surveillance footage showed them disembarking from a pleasure craft carrying what the Confederation's database recognized as sporting equipment. Within 3 hours, they had disabled a harvester mining operation that had been established in violation of territorial agreements on a nominally uninhabited moon. "This is psychological warfare," declared High Commander Ston, now consuming fermented tree sap during official meetings rather than waiting until after hours. "They're deliberately concealing their command structure to induce paranoia." In desperation, the Council authorized direct contact with several captured harvesters to gain their perspective on human combat capabilities. The prisoners, secured in reinforced containment units designed to prevent their characteristic habit of attempting to harvest the genetic material of their interrogators, proved surprisingly forthcoming. "We do not understand the question," chittered the harvester-designated Subject Alpha, its compound eyes fixed on the holographic images of various human clothing styles being displayed. What relevance does external covering have to combat effectiveness? We are attempting to identify their elite warrior caste, explained the interrogator. All 6 Harvester prisoners made the clicking sound that xenolinguists had tentatively identified as laughter, though it sounded more like marbles being dropped into a garbage disposal. You cannot identify them because they do not exist as you conceptualize them, Subject Alpha responded. The humans do not separate their warrior function from their civilian identity. This statement was dismissed as Harvester misinformation, but it planted a seed of doubt in the Council's collective mind. Meanwhile, a pattern was emerging that no one wanted to acknowledge. Every time the Harvesters tested Confederation borders near human-settled systems, they encountered resistance from individuals who, by all appearances, were simply civilians who happened to be in the area. Merchants, tourists, researchers, even a group identified from their vessel registration as deep space fishing enthusiasts. None wore anything resembling military attire, none carried weapons that matched Confederation military standards, and none followed recognized tactical doctrines. And yet, the Harvesters were consistently repelled with minimal collateral damage and 0 human casualties. "We need to face facts," General VX finally declared, his skin settling into the mottled blue-gray pattern that indicated reluctant acceptance of an uncomfortable truth. Either the humans are lying about their military structure, or... He couldn't bring himself to finish the sentence. The implications were too disturbing. Military intelligence analysts across the galaxy had one thing in common: migraines. Their superiors demanded answers about human special forces, and all they had to show for months of research was a collection of contradictory evidence and increasingly bizarre theories. The breakthrough came from an unlikely source: a cleaning drone that accidentally archived thousands of hours of combat footage while trying to remove digital dust from military servers. The footage showed something so obvious that everyone had missed it precisely because they were looking too hard. The first revelation hit during analysis of a liberation operation on mining colony X-227. The aliens watched as what appeared to be a group of maintenance workers efficiently disabled the colony's defense systems. It wasn't until 3 days later, when comparing notes with another intelligence division, that they realized these maintenance workers had actually been human special forces. "That's impossible," declared the chief military analyst of the Regian Empire. "Those humans were wearing standard mining corporation uniforms and discussing proper ventilation shaft maintenance protocols." "Yes," replied their junior analyst, while simultaneously dismantling the colony's entire security network and liberating 2,000 slaves. The second piece of the puzzle emerged from footage of a high-stakes diplomatic function. The aliens observed what they assumed was the catering staff efficiently moving through the crowd, serving drinks and canapés. It wasn't until 3 weeks later, when a major crime syndicate mysteriously collapsed, that they connected the dots. The entire catering team had been human special forces, gathering intelligence and planting evidence while serving perfectly paired wines. "But they had the correct garnish ratio in every cocktail," protested one particularly distressed analyst. "They even handled a complaint about undercooked appetizers." The evidence continued to mount. A group of tourist photographers who had documented every weakness in a pirate stronghold's defense system. Environmental inspectors who had mapped an entire underground weapon smuggling network while actually conducting legitimate environmental inspections. Even a documentary crew that had somehow managed to film both an award-winning piece about local culture and coordinate a massive sting operation simultaneously. The analysts began to notice a pattern, or rather, the deliberate absence of one. Human special forces didn't have a uniform because everything was their uniform. They didn't infiltrate organizations, they became legitimate parts of them. They didn't pretend to be maintenance workers, they became fully qualified maintenance workers who could actually fix the ventilation system while planting surveillance devices. The real horror dawned when the analysts realized this wasn't just a tactic, it was a fundamental philosophy. Human Special Forces operators spent years learning multiple trades, mastering various professions, and becoming genuine experts in civilian fields. Their cover identities weren't covers at all, they were additional skill sets. "Do you mean to tell me," one high-ranking military official sputtered, "that when we background-checked that award-winning chef at the peace negotiations and found 15 years of documented culinary experience and 3 prestigious cooking awards, that was actually all real?" "Yes, sir," came the reply. "They apparently believe that the best way to pose as something is to actually become that thing." The galaxy's military establishments were thrown into chaos. Their entire concept of special operations was based on stealing uniforms, faking credentials, and maintaining cover stories. The humans had instead opted to actually acquire the credentials, develop real expertise, and maintain legitimate alternate careers. Further analysis revealed even more disturbing patterns. Human Special Forces operators routinely held actual jobs in their target areas years before any operation was planned. They became valued employees, won professional awards, and contributed to their civilian fields substantially. Some had even published papers or advanced their civilian professions while simultaneously gathering intelligence.